Saturday. Oh, well, it's good to see everybody.
Yeah.
That's good. Those of us who are left. I'm not going to get depressed again, am I?
No.
No!
We celebrating.
We're celebrating.
Nothing dies.
Bowery.
Yeah.
Right on the time. Well, Woodstock is in the house.
Yeah.
New Jersey's in the house. Brooklyn.
Yep.
And even East Village. Yeah. How you guys been around?
Boulder, Colorado.
Boulder, Colorado, in the house. I just read, Jim Cohn wrote such a beautiful afterwards to one of Andy's books. I'm thinking of Jim today. Oh, Andy's gone, Andy's gone, Andy's gone, Andy's gone, Andy's back, Andy's gone. Oh, we turn to you and we learn from you, and we sing you little blues for you. Andy's gone, Andy's gone, and he's back, and he's gone. Oh, Andy's here, and he's gone, and he's gone. Little blues, Andy Clausen for you. Use our Mayakovsky, I like to say that. Mayakovsky was such a powerhouse for all of us, and there's Andy being our Mayakovsky. That's cool. So I'm going to read a poem, and of course, I don't know whether to read like an archetypal poem like the title poem of 40th Century Man, or no?
I didn't say
Am
no.
I ring-a-dinging here, Josiah? I think I'm ring-a-dinging, right on the borderline. Bring me down, Mr. Taylor. Or to read the orgasm poem from here. So anybody got a choice?
Orgasm.
All right.
You can have some good orgasm.
Oh, it's called More Than a Siesta. And it starts off with a little William Blake tune. Are not the joys of morning sweeter than the joys of night? And are the vigorous joys of youth ashamed of the light? Let age and sickness silent rob the vineyards in the night. But those who burn with vigorous youth pluck fruits before the light. More Than a Siesta, Andy Clausen. I know what's wrong with this nation. Us. This nation. The answer, unexpected, so obvious, turning into Spear Boulevard after letting Linda off to work a new job in a new city. Here it comes, a bona fide vision. Too many fuck at night. Not enough in daylight. All those precious, organic, sun-bestowed energies wasted. Look at the snapdragons, tomatoes, poppies, uncivilized animals, people, sex-mad bees and rabbits. They live in the day, sleep at night. Is love by the bright brook just for gentlemen and ladies? No fuck breaks? No union demands for original union? No saying, look, boss, I feel like a bucking horse in a stall shaking hands with the president in the head. Ain't gonna cut it. I'm doing me and you both no good. I'm bumping into things. No good, no damn good. And because I know you understand, I give you the honest day. Man, it's to your benefit, the break. I need to take, no, I'm not going to no bar. I go to TCB, go see the darling of my life. Oh, Jesus, look. We're going to the lake. This can't wait. She's gonna come with me Saturday. The rent, reality's gonna get paid because it's already paid, man. I live in a future world. You live next to all. Come on. Fired? To what? To hell? Death, humiliation, cancer, surrender, tearing all the fuck right out of me? Let the waitress go home. Forget tips. Put it in the price. Put it in the wage. Put the wage into a great big living, breathing fuck and light heart it to act in another world where the deceptive fuck all unglorious. No, it can't be. Never, never can it be. No time for the quickie. No proverbial nooner, squared, rectangle, domed, roofed rows of weary onanism. They need energy splitting the nucleus of the atom. 10 cups of coffee, 2 six-packs, and the hyper-humble house husband jacks off. The wrong shift queen untouches her Rambo on the apple bus. The echoing green pilfered. Give it back. Feel human again. Sexy again. Bosses of the world. Union negotiators. Heed. A nation of daytime fuckers will be so bright, energetic, open, satisfied, in tune with original nature. No one, not the Russians, not the Iranians, not organized crime, would ever defeat a nation so united. Soon Russia, Iran, the world would know the salvation of the daytime fuck's power. One great big union. Free the daytime fuckers. Oh, beauty, free us all. One great big union. The daytime fuck. Andy Clausen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. It's great to see so many of Andy's friends here, including some of his longtime friends who've traveled long distances to get here. Thank you all. We're here to honor the great American poet Andy Clausen, who passed away this past April 11th at age 80 in Kingston, New York. My name is Eliot Katz, and I've organized this event with Danny Shaw, who I'll be introducing as the next speaker. And up front, I'd like to thank Danny and also Raymond Foy for doing so much to help Andy during the last few months when Andy was at Golden Hill in Kingston. Danny as Andy's healthcare proxy and Raymond as Andy's power of attorney. And both Danny and Raymond also spent a lot of time visiting Andy during those months, which was really important for Andy. And Danny also helped put a lot of time in to help get 2 new books of Andy's out, one in conjunction with Pamela Twining. Because we didn't know how many people were going to be here to participate in this event, Danny and I decided to run this event as an open mic, with each person getting 5 minutes to talk about Andy or to read a poem about Andy or a poem by Andy. And we have a couple of books up here if people want to pick out a poem by Andy. Let me just say, Andy also loved open readings. You know, for Andy, the open poetry reading was like a symbol of democracy. Andy and I were roommates for about 7 or 8 months in 1983 in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And we started a feature open series at a bar in New Brunswick called the Roxy Bar. And that's where I learned how Andy liked to run open readings. And we had a bell down there, and at the time limit, like 5 minutes, we would ring the bell, and that meant the person had like 1 more minute to finish, so they need to get to the end. And then at the end, and then if they didn't finish by then, we would just go up and say, thank you, that was, insert the person's name, and the next reader is. So we're going to try to avoid that, the bell. I did bring a bell if we end up needing one, but we are supposed to leave here at 9:30, and we don't want to have anybody who wants to speak cut off. So we are asking people to please try to stick to the 5 minutes, and until we get the bell, Danny and I, who will be sitting here, will do some kind of signal at about the 5-minute mark, which means, skip to the end if we've got a lot more left. So again, thank you all. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to read a prose tribute that I wrote for Andy. This is called Tribute for Andy Clausen. Andy Clausen was a great American poet and a great friend for 44 years. It was a real pleasure to know Andy and to have had many adventures together through 4+ decades. Andy Clausen was born as Andre Laloux in a Belgian bomb shelter in 1943, and he moved to Oakland, California at age 3 at the end of the Second World War, when his mother gave him his new name, his last name Clausen being the name of his new father. The first time that I saw Andy read poetry, is this my, I'm here to read it. The first time that I saw Andy read poetry, days after we had been introduced by Allen Ginsberg, was in the summer of 1980 at the Europa Institute in Boulder, Colorado, where I was doing a month-long apprenticeship with Allen. Andy was scheduled to read one night as part of a 3-person program, along with Allen and Philip Whalen. And Allen and Philip had Andy close the show, symbolically passing along a generational poetry torch. With his deep oratorical voice and poetry filled with amazing energy, insight, humor, and imagination, Andy gave a reading that night that left a deep and lasting impression. A few years later, Danny Schott and I published a book of Andy's, which was the one that Paul Holman just read from, The Iron Curtain of Love, which I also printed at a print shop I was working at, that included those first poems of Andy's that I had heard. The poem that I remember most from that evening was his long poem, From the Top of My Lungs, an open letter to the Russian people, with its explorations of the historic hypocrisies and exploitations, sometimes hawkish and fatal, of both the U.S. and Soviet governments, and its visionary insistence that artists and working people of the U.S. and USSR could one day figure out how to put an end to the physically and psychically damaging Cold War that still, under different conditions, goes on today. From Andy's poem, No More Guilt, American, oh Russian, the freedom to choose peace. Jesus, how badly our governments behave. Brothers and sisters, the general strike now. Andy and I did many readings together through the decades in Boulder, San Francisco, New Brunswick, New York City, Woodstock. A few of those readings featured Allen Ginsberg as the main headliner. One memorable early event was the Young Poets Midnight Reading featuring Andy, Danny Schott, and I at the historic Jack Kerouac Festival at the Europa Institute in Boulder in 1982. To get to that reading, Danny and I had taken a cross-country van ride with Andy and his family, his then-wife Linda and 3 kids, Cassidy, Mona, and Jesse. A ride that also included the beat jazz poet Ray Bremser, who seemingly chose beer as a substitute for any solid food during the full 2-day ride, leading to many extra rest stops along the highway. Andy and I were also roommates for about 7 or 8 months in New Brunswick, New Jersey around 1983, during which we started a feature open reading series at the Roxy Bar, and that was a series that included some well-known poets like Gregory Corso, reading with local Central Jersey poets. For decades, Allen Ginsberg consistently cited Andy Clausen as one of the most important poets of the next generation. For Andy's book Without Doubt in 1991, Allen wrote an introduction that declared, the frank, friendly extravagance of his metaphor and word connection gives Andy Clausen's poetry a reading interest rare in poetry of any generation. Allen also said in that same introduction that he would take a chance on a President Clausen. Andy's best work through the decades extended the democratic left and imagination-filled traditions of poets like Walt Whitman, William Blake, Muriel Rukeyser, Langston Hughes, Allen Ginsberg, the French Surrealists, and the Russian Futurists, especially Vladimir Mayakovsky, who was always one of Andy's favorites. Andy's many books include The Iron Curtain of Love, 40th Century Man, Songs of Bo Baba, Without Doubt, Home of the Blues, for which I wrote an introduction, and his two newest books that Danny Schott worked long hours to get into the world, and that we have here, The Fable Dam and Two Hearts Beat. And that second one had poems by Andy and his late important partner of the last decade, Pamela Twining. Plus, Andy is also the author of an excellent memoir, Beat, about his adventures with well-known and lesser-known Beat Generation writers, including Janine Palmy Vega, with whom Andy had lived in Woodstock for more than a dozen years until her death in 2010. In Andy's poetry, empirical observations mix inventively with jazzed-up surreal and modernist imagery, the kind of surreal imagery that the European philosopher Ernst Bloch called emancipatory illuminations, because the surreal images don't yet exist in the actual world and therefore imply the possibility of creating a more humane world in the future. From wars to widespread hunger and poverty, from AIDS and COVID epidemics to ever-present racism and sexism, from continued violations of international human rights to the new and growing risk of climate change, our species has witnessed plenty of tragedy and danger over the last century. As Andy wrote in The War to Begin All Wars, up to this point in world history, the medicine isn't working. Andy worked most of his adult life as a construction worker, a union hod carrier carrying around 80-pound sacks of cement, also holding other physically demanding jobs that in a more just society, one of America's best poets wouldn't have had to keep doing late in life with a bad back. Having titled one of his two books of selected poems, Home of the Blues, Andy Clausen earned the blues that he wrote about, the blues that have traditionally been sung with a sense of irony and self-awareness while waiting, writing, and working for a changed world. Having reached the age of 80 with thousands of pages of poetry in published books and in unpublished notebooks, Andy Clausen during his lifetime earned a distinctive place among the second generation of beat poets in the way that Allen Ginsberg and Philip Whalen had foreseen when I first saw Andy read at Europa in 1980. In some segments of literary America, readers and listeners already know what Allen Ginsberg knew, that Andy Clausen was one of the most compelling poets of our time. The linguistic energy, surprise phrasings, and global insight of his poems send readers into motion, thinking, planning, pacing, going quickly to the nearest poetry cafe, rock and roll club, or political rallies for peace, social justice, and ecological well-being. Our current perilous world could surely use more people stirred by poets and other artists into constructive thought and action. We will really miss the fact that we won't have any new contributions from Andy Clausen, but we are lucky to have so much of Andy's work to catch up on. And next, co-organizer of this event, Danny Schott.
I'm going to turn this mic off because I think it's feeding back some. Testing, but it's off. I just want to announce we have the sign-up sheet here. The three people who are going to go after me, right after me, are Michael Wochuk, Bob Adler, and Michael Platsky, just so you know. We're not going to do introductions and bios and all that stuff. We'll just say your name, okay?
Good, good.
I met Andy in 1980 or 81 through Eliot Katz, who studied with him at Europa. To say that Andy was a profound influence, usually for the better, on Eliot and I would be a vast understatement. He just is part of my life. He's part of many of our lives, and he still is. Anyway, what I wrote is sort of about the end of his life. It's a long 20-minute thing, but I'm going to read for 5 minutes, and I'll keep it under 5. I promise you that. This is excerpts from it. It's called Death of a Poet. Oh, and one more thing. I wrote it chronologically backwards. I don't know why, but it seemed to work that way. So, 10. I feed him chocolate pudding with a spoon. I kind of like this, he smiles, for I am a mighty oak. He looks at me suspiciously. Who started the rumor about the fish? Not me, I reply meekly. Just checking. He closes his eyes and drifts off. The end is near. The morphine is working. He opens his eyes. Am I dying? 9. What do you mean he doesn't want to? I'm speaking to the A2 nursing station at Golden Hill Rehabilitation and Nursing Center in Kingston, New York, aka the nursing home. He says he's not strong enough, he just can't do it. I say, but we paid for the medical transport van to get him here. We made all the arrangements. I am flabbergasted. Raymond Foy and I have spent the past few weeks organizing and cajoling Woodstock people to come to Andy's book party held at the Mothership, a performance space managed by Paul McMahon, Andy's former landlord. Over the past month, Andy has repeatedly said the reason he's hanging in there is for the book party. How can he not want to? It's raining outside. No, it's delusion outside. But 25 hearty souls are here. Caroline is here, my son Casey. Raymond is more realistic and accepting about Andy's condition. I can't believe it. 3 days later, I agree that Andy will transition to palliative care. I give my approval over the phone. My voice is thin. Julia asks me to repeat myself. 7. Somehow, we get 2 new books of Andy's poetry out at the beginning of 2024, The Fable Damned and Two Hearts Beat. It is a labor of love for both the publishers and me. We think they'll give Andy reason to live. It does, for a while. On my weekly visits to the nursing home, we go over the manuscripts, arguing over the various spellings and odd capitalizations and seeming typos that are obscure references that are crystal clear to Andy, but no one else. He believes strongly in the beat credo, first thought, best thought. I just want people to read the books. I'm hungover, as is my wont on New Year's Day. Nevertheless, I drive 2 hours to bring Andy to a poetry marathon in Socrates, New York. Rhea, the physical therapist, whom Andy adores, supervises my training. I learn how to get Andy into the wheelchair, out of the wheelchair, into my car, out of my car, up steps, up a ramp. I ask Rhea if I get a certificate for having completed the training. She looks at me like I'm crazy. It was a joke, I tell her, but she doesn't believe me. People are surprised to see Andy as I proudly wheel him to the front row. A few look away from the white bandaged stump of his leg. I take a photo for Facebook. Andy reads a poem from the galleys of his new book. His voice is strong and fills the room. He gets the pages stuck together and continues reading from the middle of one poem into the middle of another. Doesn't matter, he tells me later. They heard my voice. Thank you. Next up, Michael Walker. Whose pictures you've been looking at, by the way.
1977. Okay. What amusement. My God, Bull, I told Bull West the news. Bull, I said, Bull, you've got to stop hating and driving your friends insane. Friends, my ass. All they want to do is kiss ass and fart away the time I spend raising my family, raising my consciousness, and raising some hell. Bull, let those things happen. Let's just keep moving. Let's just work it out. Listen, Chuck, his face looking past mine into space. You're a nice guy. You're better than I am. You know, you're good. I'm crazy. I can't be kissing ass on any level. If these people want my poetry, they gotta come and get it. Yeah, I get top billing. I see he's right, that he's old, that he don't really have to work these personal problems of lost identity that everyone around thinks they need to do. If it's cappuccino, it's 3 cappuccinos. If it's steak, it's a big steak. If it's work, it's big work. If it's poetry, it's monumental. And this goddamn poetry that Bill is sets poetry jets. Poetry makes poetry his heart, soul, guts, death drunks. Chuck, you're okay, but you've got to travel. You've got to expand. I know he means right now, and I feel there's no right now. There's only when I come back from where I'm splitting to this time. Go down south where there's some shit kicking and living and working hard to earn the beer every night. Poop butt ex-Easterners, they come out here and try to tell a real Okie how to run his life. Yeah, down south. Go get some real working people. I begin to get angry because I see all this to be true. And I walk through these 2 familiar streets and I know it's true. But I don't move just yet. I can't. Hey man, you're young, go out and get it. When I was young, I was trimming, kicking shit and traveling all over this country. Again, I know he's right. Of course, he can't know what I call my process, but that seems to be riddled with being incapable of getting some trip together that frees me from the clutches of big business of the America. You gotta see stuff. You gotta see how people live, who work every day and just want some kind of life. You know you can make it. You can make it now. You're better now than most poets. You're better now than John Oliver Simon. You're better than most and just as good as the rest. I predict you make it in a year or 2 if you do what you're supposed to do. You got to send out your work, write a few poems just so. You'll make it. You'll make it. This turns my stomach. This making it means that I can easily sell out. And I ask, what? Okay, what is there to do, Bull? I can publish 20 books, and if they're not distributed, I'll be doing nothing anyway. What is there to do? You yourself get these weird offers. What if someone offers you a juicy deal for the rights to your stuff? Are you going to take that shitty contract for your guts? What they'll cheapen it to manifest unconscious of the putrid world into candy? What? Come on, you know what I'm saying. What do you want? I want happiness for my family. I want a world where my kids can play with other kids. Someplace where you can live and not worry about getting ripped off. Righteous, soulful partying. After we've worked hard, harder, hard, we got something to party about. And the harvest is in. Anarchy. Righteous, soulful anarchy. Without socialistic pretensions and capitalist degeneracy, a place for bums and a place for businessmen, a goddamn place where you can get a beer for a quarter. Yeah. Well, and talk to someone anywhere, not have it be a pena or an Irish pub or some hip fashion showcase. Good food that you can eat, and wine and life. Some European, the spirit of Vandal and Visigoths, scouring the land for a piece of life for themselves. Not no degenerate Rome or Weimar Republic. The individual has to grow up and not be shielded and buffered by the collective will. No. I want the dance to begin. If this has to die first, then I'm ready. I'll fight and I'll die. Bull West shakes, jumps, and dances. Bull West, the muse, blows the horn like old Gabriel and Charlie Parker in a duet. You can live the life now if you want it and work hard, and everyone see for themselves what they must have. Yes, all right. No one's going to impose their rule on me. Not no Oakland cops or poetry flash or dudes who worship my poetry or any strange or suburban puppets to come and tell me to shit backwards in the name of economics or business. Anarchy of the heart. God damn it, you can't lie and live happy. You can't lie and live happy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael Wotak. Next up,
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is fantastic. Someone, when I walked in, said, well, we're here, we're celebrating Andy died. No, we're not. We're celebrating the Andy lived.
Use the mic, use the mic.
Okay. Anyway, we're not celebrating Andy dying, we're celebrating the Andy lived. So just remember that. I met Andy in the 1970s. I met Michael Wotak at the same time at a Starry Plow Irish poem in Berkeley. And I was a new poet, and the Starry Plow would say, if you got up and you read a poem, you got 3 beers, or 1 Guinness. So I always picked the 1 Guinness. Anyway, I heard Andy read, we became friends, it was immediate. He had kids, I have a kid, they became real close friends. We were doing then what you guys are all doing now. We were doing poetry, mostly in the East Bay, but also over in San Francisco, up in Sonora, up the coast. We did poetry readings, we did prison poetry, we did all kinds of things. And Andy looked at me one day and said, you know, Bob, I don't want to be like them, talking about the beatniks. He said, I want to write like them. Well, he said, Bob, we're not the beat generation, we're the regeneration. We're filled with rebop and anarchy. And I go, yeah, I believe it. Andy was our leader. But when you read what he's writing now, The Fabled Dam, Two Hearts Burn, Andy Clausen was the last of the beat generation. Andy Clausen was a beatnik, and he was a great, great poet. And so, I got this all someone was looking at. He gave us this 5 minutes, and before I read this poem, and believe me, I had it picked out. Before I read this poem, I wanted to point out, I'm not going to read it, I just wanted to point out, it's called Ace in the Hole, and it's in this 2 Hearts beat.
You don't want to put the mic in the holder?
Yeah, I'll put it in the holder.
Yeah.
I'm used to walking around with the mic.
Yeah, just twist it to your mouth.
That's fine. So anyway, in this 2 Hearts beat, and the last poem in this book is what I would call the magnum opus of Andy Clausen. And I feel so strong. I'm not everyone to read it. It takes 20 minutes. I'm not going to stand here to read it. But I wanted to point it out to you. My feeling is that Jack Kerouac would have read this poem, he would have shredded this scroll. I'm serious. The poem is that good. And I have it all picked out for you here. And I didn't put the page. No, I did. I had it all picked out just for this. Oh, wait. Did I get close? Okay, here it is. Thank you for your patience. This poem is called Is It True? Is it true a huge swath of India will be too hot to inhabit, where hundreds of millions now live? Will the land cook? Will this massive swelter move to where? A huge cauldron of people cultured to live their unique manner and outlook. Where will they go? Is it true Greenland is sweating out millions of tons of itself into the rising of the great thaw? Is it true Venice might be submerged? New Orleans, too. Will many islands disappear? How about Manhattan? As fit water is rarefied and the profit motive drives policy and law and commands enforcement, So the big boy wealth will just have just cause to roar as their traditional solution to scarcity, overpopulation, and climate change, looming large, high-cost bread and water. Science mutated seeds and herds of castrated oxen have replaced the buffalo. The Pacific Ocean is radioactive. Mini Godzillas everywhere. Cameras inside cameras taking unwanted selfies. Every busy corner telecast yes or no decisions faster than sound won't let you escape. Calculates your every future move. Wishing is a curse. It happens when the situation is nearly hopeless, wishing that I can make life easier for you as an adequate provider instead of a geezer whose accumulated wealth is in battered notebooks and a 25-year-old Apple. I'd be pushing mushrooms if not for you. I haven't a foot for games of fun, as in fun and games. My good foot has gone bad. At the parties, dancing is another country, another era, another life. I'm not getting old. I am old. Wisdom is more than caution, isn't it? Even children of rocky soil, signs of bedrock smile and turn eyes to glorious flowers, both feral and cultivated, made for word glorious. Yesterday's rebels and revolutionaries are afraid of change. Now old and compromised, they have their small slice of pie, maybe their own health food store, maybe they built a hip mansion on t-shirts. Maybe they invested in new foods and herbs, maybe in farmers, maybe reclaimed by family. They were rock stars. Perhaps they were once bona fide radicals, now certified celebrities of the bygone. Seems safe, no need to make big change, yet the guards have made it mandatory. Change that is looming large and inconceivable. Something has to give. I don't think it will be pretty. Don't forget Ace in the Hole, please. It's fantastic.
Thank you. That was Bob Adler. I just want to say quickly that Michael and Bob, along with Bill Finkelstein, are the three people here who've known Andy the longest. And Michael and Bob flew here from out west. So we're really honored that they took the time and trouble to get out. Next speaker is Michael Platsky.
Sorry about the phone, folks. I'm trying to turn it off, but apparently I'm taking off the... and physically... Hi, everyone. I was born on May 12, 1950. No, I'm only kidding. I will be brief, I promise. I met Andy in the late 90s. I heard him do some reading. Cosmic Forces moved me a few years later to curate and host the weekly Open Spoken microphone in Woodstock, New York. Andy never missed one unless he was on a national tour. So I got into his good graces pretty quickly by doing that. And I'd always check with Andy when I read my things to get a review from him, which he would be able to give just with his face. But when I read this one, he looked at me and said, "That was fucking good." So if it was good enough for him, I'm hoping it's good enough for you all. I think we connected because Oakland is to San Francisco as Brooklyn is to Manhattan. And so I had some of the deepest, most intelligent conversations with that man. I miss him every day. When you're born and raised in Brooklyn, you hit the streets and you get away from your parental influence, the first advice you get from everyone in your age group is deny everything. Hey, aren't you that guy? Don't I know you from back in the day? Back when the sun rose bright orange, glistening through dancing leaves, bird song drifting across soft breeze, scented spiced air, spreading odor beyond the unexplored. Didn't I see you laying across gray granite, above the great lawn of breathing grass, green with anticipation at the approaching footsteps, under a canopy of dripping wax candle brick mountains, measuring the comings and goings across the borders of time? Wasn't that you, trying to defy gravity in motionless tears, slipping through the cracks, slowly eroding your rubber legs and eggshell heart? Weren't you that guy shooting bottle rockets off the penthouse patio? Hurling towards stone-faced Greek philosophers perched above flower beds lit in nightshade shadow, sparks falling harmlessly below crabapple trees? Was that you, eyes teary from tear baths, splashing water provided by strangers, removing the sting of authority from your face while you vowed to return again and again, until color splashed out all the black and white of it all? Was that you, riding the momentum of rising tides, sweeping the dirty lies aside to join uncollected garbage? Was that you, sitting cross-legged in the midst of a riot, when all the lights went out and beer was given for free, when the shattered glass fell all around, when the looters ran amok? Was that you, watching the world crack open and you just smiled in blissful resignation? No, that wasn't me.
Thank you, Michael Platsky. Our next three people with something to say about Andy will be Shiv Mirabito. And I'm going to apologize for mispronouncing people's names because I'm about to do it. Leela Dillabo.
That's not bad. That's pretty good.
Okay. And Puma Pearl. Let's hear it for Shiv, who is a good friend of Andy and very important to him.
Thank you, Danny and Eliot, for putting this together. I'm Shiv Mirabito, and I live next door to Andy. And I have the Shivastan Poetry Ashram Bookshop with lots of events. I have a new book out this year, Compassion Revolution. And last year I put out this Diane DePrimo book with an intro by Ann Waldman. And if you ever want a copy, just let me know. Last year we put together this festschrift for Andy's 80th birthday. And I apologize if I didn't ask you to contribute something. I tried to get to everybody. And Eliot and Danny were very instrumental in putting it together. And every moment with Andy Clausen was a celebration of poetry and life. And I think we should be very happy that we all knew him and not be sad about his moving on to the next phase. So I'm going to read my praise poem from the festschrift. These are also available. We're having, July 13th, we're having a celebration of Andy in Woodstock and also burying his ashes at the Woodstock Artist Graveyard. So I hope you can come to that. This poem's called The Andy Clausen Experience. Andy Clausen puts the human in humanity. A son, a father, a brother, a lover, and now a respected elder poetry lineage holder. A Belgian boy grown into an American man, evolved into a psychedelic poet laureate, sage of the Aquarian age. A true friend in fair and inclement weather, your stories will be remembered forever. a writer, a fighter, a survivor, a friend and a student of the Beat generation, a compassionate teacher to everyone, with firsthand knowledge of Blake, Whitman, the Russian futurist, Ginsberg, and all the Beat poet writers below the blazing sun. You saw the USA in your Chevrolet, on the road, around the world, from the San Francisco Bay to Europa to New York to the vast Himalayan Milky Way, and everything everywhere in between, absorbing the inner, outer, and secret teachings. Your books will live forever in the Akashic records of eternity, a plethora of poetry, an important literary history from World War II to the roaring 2020s, and far beyond the great beyond. You've had great teachers and friends and have experienced true love, and now you can relax and rest on your laurels and wear your olive leaf crown of success and reflect on the past, present, and future. I'm happy and proud to consider you, Andy Clausen, my teacher and friend. Our respect for you will never end. Today enjoy another 6 months of bliss, after his 80th birthday. So thank you all very much. I hope you'll come up and hang out at Woodstock.
Thank you, Shiva. It's amazing. That was written while Andy was alive. All still true. Next up, Willa D.
I was actually afraid that
Can't hear you.
Are these pants see-through?
No, you're good.
We're fine.
I was worried about that.
They're sexy.
Take them off.
Then they won't be seen.
So this is one of those birthday poems that she had asked. He put out a notice to everybody to send in whatever writing or poems, whatever, for his 80th birthday. So it is a little schmaltzy. And he really liked my poems, and he would announce it. It embarrassed me a little bit, because he was very opinionated, and I was surprised. So, Santa Clausen. Now that you have reached the sorrow and other depths of your 80 years in the poetry of life, no small feat in this dying carbon world. You keep us in surprise of the panorama we ourselves have created. From the sanctity and heights of your magic carpet, you see what we don't see, yet know to be true, that it is only through the depths of sorrow and trouble that we emerge from the perfume of life. You are both poet and visionary, placed on this turf by a flock of angels. May this your August orbit around the sun shimmer all the more with the wisdom and dazzle that springs from your heart. He saw this when he was still alive when this was all happening, so that's great. And I could feel he's here.
Very touched by the
Yeah, you really liked it.
The feather?
By the fest trip, the booklet.
The booklet, oh, great.
Thank you, David. Lila Della Boja, I think I'm saying.
This was written immediately after hearing that Andy had died. And it's called Good Night, Andy, and Good Morning, Pamela. Andy Clausen died today. A mountain of force and explosion. Thunder, lightning. Words he spoke to his friend Danny shot were, "For I am a mighty oak." It made me recall Steve Galachinsky's last words to his youth girl. I think I overdosed on Sun Ra. The great poets are always in the middle. Andy used to drive down from Woodstock to the treehouse on East 2nd Street whenever Rick asked him to read. Well, actually, Pamela did the driving. Andy couldn't see that well at night. But he was game for every journey, every trip, every voyage to forever. Pamela would read too. When she told her story about her close call with the Manson family, I texted Annie to say she had to meet her. She's just like us. We were all shocked when Pamela died unexpectedly, leaving Andy thrown into a future on Earth without her loving presence. Today, I texted Annie to tell her about Andy, and I texted Rick too. Annie said she wished she believed in a heaven where he and Pamela were rocking out. I said I didn't know about heaven either, but I bet their spirits were entwined with everyone they loved. They were such a late life they, said Annie. Seems like you figure out some stuff, and then in the blink of an eye, it's over. Well, I guess that's why I'm still alive, I responded, and added some cliches about his long, interesting, adventurous life filled with love and poetry. Cliched or not, I believed every word I said. Rick texted me photos of his copy of Beat, bought right here, in fact. Rick, wrote Andy, friend of Puma, poets and musicians. Andy Clausen, 10/28/18, NYC. Rick said he was standing behind me on line to get a book signed, and that I introduced them, and that whatever I said to Andy about him resulted in a sweet inscription. I don't remember what I said, and I don't remember where I put Andy's book or what Andy wrote, but I think I remember that I couldn't decipher his handwriting. Andy Clausen, Pamela Twain. Good night, Andy. Good morning, Pamela. Spinning through the universe, just like you always did, but without the flesh and bones and blood holding you down, just spinning, 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 free. Thank you.
Okay, the aforementioned accolade.
Pretty good. Thank you.
You good?
There's no better compliment. Puma told the story, which is great. There's no better compliment than in reading the book, Beat. He wrote a line, and I just said, I know that. You know, when you get some picture, I know that thing, the whole thing. So here the song's called Little Death, Petite Mike. Every night when I turn out the lights, there's a little death inside, an increment under the wrench of wrong.
That's why goodbyes. Thanksgiving picture in my childhood home. Now these minds and bodies have no corporate form. They say the moment to seize is now. They don't say why, they don't say how. So answer me this. Lay here with me in the very same room. So answer me this. What is the nature? What is the nature of being nice? Many got yourself into my hot water, my friend. It's going, going down over your head. I can recall but not repeat what she said. She said, once upon a time in a lover's bed. Once upon a time, we both lay entwined, body and soul, heart to mind. Now fear finds courage through the night, by first light, maybe one survives. Fear finds courage through the night. Now every night when I turn out the lights, there's a little death inside. That's why goodbye. That's why goodbye. Andy.
Thank you, Rick. Since we seem to be going on time, and we've had several of Andy's friends who couldn't make it here from different parts of the country sent work to ask us to read, in between readers if we had time. We're gonna do that. So I'm gonna read next a poem for Andy by Andy's older friend Jim Cohn. It's called Transcriber, Translator, Transmitter. Breath within the breath, love inside the love. From Andy Clausen's poem, his book, Songs of Bowery. I adore spoken word truth poet Andy Clausen's Bo Baba Dharma poems. Those most underrated of all the poems of all the Buddhas, poems afoot in wisdom chapbook, a fire breathing with what is. For me, the name Clausen is synonymous with signifying truth agency, with signifying tradition of original ingenue, Cassidy, oral pictographic line, 100% human frisson, a thrill, kick, rush, buzz, jolt, high line, the beat line of poesy, profusely detailed in his all-seeing eye, a dreamer of American dreams, free from running on snake oil mind. I told myself pen's mightier because I saw his street poetry vignettes arise from vast black ink vats into Wickmanic laborer, persona books, admixture and alloy, ally to wise Blake's Bible of Hell. Misunderstood anti-misogynist vet U.S. Marine, you are unknown peacetime soldier who welcomed freedom's unbound poet daughters, so believing in the working man, the working dead, the working angels, the working fusionist, agglutinating commixtures of the new and now. fourscore he stands, dissecting the acid rains of love and loss, inspiring the young to question inhumane policies, climatic catastrophes, useless constancy, a series of Saturday night fights. Oh, bluesman, president of life's revelation road, poetic champion, holy visions befriend with fearless justice and sweet sunlight baked into the grass. I vow before poets from all world nations that, without doubt, your voice is the authentic sweat of brow, heroic, vox populi of democracy, noted by Allen Ginsberg. That is Jim Cone. And next up, it's a pleasure to introduce Maria Damon, and after that will be Lee Finkelstein.
Thank you. I came here not expecting to read at all, and yet somehow here I am. So,
That's the best intro I've ever heard.
please be indulgent. Andy was hugely charismatic and a wonderful writer, and this is a really good book. And those of you who know me know how snarky I can be. So this is really good. I'm going to read a little passage about a poet that meant a lot to both of us, and that is Bob Crawford. Yes, I might not. This is what you can tell I'm not an experienced
No, I'm not experienced that way. Like David told me to do this.
Yeah, putting him to work.
When we go to the meeting.
And the other thing is everyone here, like,
My knees going up and down the stairs.
everyone has that great, like, neat oratorical thing that I have never quite cultivated. So again,
It sounds pretty beat oratorical to me. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah.
I'm sorry you were.
hey, Bob, indulge me. This is Andy speaking now. I took a break and went into the coffee gallery for a beer. I saw Bob, this is Bob Kaufman, and knew the legend was that he hadn't talked since John Kennedy was assassinated. The closest stool was a few down from his. I took a couple pulls and returned back through the front window to crowded Grant Street. Then I reached for my beer and Bob said, "Don't do that, Andy." He was right. I grabbed the wrong glass. It was one that had been used as a cigarette butt repository. I said, "Whoa, oh man, thanks." He knew my name. I was thrilled, even proud. You're probably wondering if I still write. Yes, not a lot, but I write. I like your work. I'm here and I'm still writing. Most of the time, Bob talked in phonemes with scat morphemes or new slogans from the High Wire, a Charlie Blondin of Mirage, like, quote, "The coffee gallery is God," unquote, quote, "Mexico, Mexico, fill my nostrils," unquote. Quote, "I don't want to fuck with all those cowboys on television watching," unquote. Once Bob Adler, myself, Michael Wojcik, D.A. Hagelberg, and Peter Pussydog, who performed in a blinking electric suit under the auspices of the late great Marianne Pollock, conducted a 145-hour, 14-minute, 263-poet marathon. 1977, Rainbow Cultural Center, Berkeley. Guinness wouldn't honor our world record request because there was nothing to measure it against. Bob was in a splendiferous kind of silk or polished cotton material dashiki. It's his turn. 8 p.m., marathon prime time. He goes to the lectern, doesn't look at the audience, and opens his book. 50 copies of Golden Sardine and Solitudes Crowded with Loneliness come out of pockets and purses. They know what to expect. Bob doesn't enunciate well without teeth and reads fast. They want to follow along. After 2 minutes, he closes the books and starts walking back to his seat. I move quickly. Bob, I'm saying, leading him back to the lectern. Man, everybody came to hear you. Help me out here, man. They think you're the greatest. And slow down. He read the entire Jailhouse manuscript 2nd April. I was so proud of what we were doing. We both end there. Again,
I'd just like to make a footnote in the oral tradition here, which is that in talking with Elaine Kaufman, she told me, Maria, that Bob always pronounced it golden sardines.
Sardines.
I just want everybody to know. So now we all know.
Oh, do I get another 5 minutes to,
Yeah, you rebuttal.
Thank you. That was Maria Damon with the follow-up explanation. And next up is another of Andy's longest time friends here, Billy Finkelstein.
So I'm gonna just render 5 minutes worth of recollection. And I met Andy in probably 1975 when he was running the open mic at the Salamander in coffee shop in Berkeley. And he kind of anointed me as somebody that he was willing to be friends with and not have to throw out from the open mic nights. But there's a piece of writing that Kerouac did called Visions of Neil and the Three Stooges. And it meant a lot to both Andy and I. And my recollection of going down Grant with Andy was that we were just kids. We were well beyond the kid age, but we were conscious of the way the world looked at us, and they looked at us as goofballs and kids. And we weren't too unhappy about that, you know. And we spent a great deal of time together. And I lived in his basement for a while in Oakland, and we managed one night to get a reading at the church in North Beach. It was Gregory Corso, Andy, and myself. And it was very well promoted, and it was pretty much of a sellout house, and Lawrence Fern getting walked out on us, and Andy never forgot it back. But that kind of was okay, you know, because we weren't the polite, we weren't the poets that got readings at the intersection. We didn't get readings at the intersection, and so we were just kids, you know. We were just like the Three Stooges.
What year was this, did you say?
Sorry?
What year was this, did you say?
This was probably about 1976, 77, something like that. So we had this reading, the three of us at the church, and we made about $500 as our share at the gate. And so Gregory said, we're going to Tahoe to gamble it. We're going as businessmen. We're not going as gamblers, as degenerate gamblers, but we're businessmen. And we're going there as investors. So, I forget which one of our disreputable automobiles we drove in, but we drove from San Francisco to Lake Tahoe, where there's casino gambling. And for most of the thing I remember most about the drive was that Gregory was talking about studying manuscripts of Shelley in England. And the juxtaposition of these things was not lost on me. You know, I was kind of a young guy, and like I knew that I was in the presence of a real scholar in Corso, but he was also kind of odd, and he talked like Ratso Rizzo, and Andy was fueling him, and so we got to the casino in Tahoe, and we did gamble, and we got up, we won about probably 500 back. But then we kept doing it until by about 3 o'clock in the morning we had 6 pennies between us. And we changed them into a nickel so we could play the nickel slots. And that didn't work out. So we drove back to San Francisco penniless. I think Andy probably had his work cut out for him because he had already bounced a couple of checks there, and Linda was going to know about that. But the last line of the thing that Kerouac wrote in Visions of Neil and the Three Stooges is that Neil knew that the Three Stooges were real and that they had nothing to reproach themselves for. And that endures to me, that Andy and I, we did live outside of what we thought of as respectable, and we I think, derived a great strength and inspiration from each other in that life. And I do miss Andy terribly. And like he said, you know, the Three Stooges were real. So anyway, that's enough for me.
My God, Visions of Neil and the Three Stooges. I just want to tell you about somebody, I know lots of people here. One of the people I like talking to the best is Josiah, the bartender. And I do want to tell you, drinks are really cheap here tonight. I've just been paying $6 for a glass of wine. People are paying $6 for beer. So please, don't be so polite that you're afraid to get up and get a drink while people are talking. It's okay. And while you're getting these Depression-era prices on your drinks, don't forget to tip Josiah. Not Depression-era tipping. As Eliot mentioned, people sent us poems who can't be here. And this one is from one of Andy's oldest friends, Robin Rule, who some of you know. Robin wrote this. Danny, I assume you'll speak at his memorial. I wonder if you would be willing to read this. I met Andy Clausen when I was 18. I'm now 68. We stayed in touch all this time. Andy shaped me in a way that allowed me to be who I might become. He was able to see past the abused, ignorant kid. He shoved books into my hands, read to me, read with me, made fun of me in the most encouraging way, and gave me respect, something I didn't have when we met. I learned trust from him. I also learned that it was acceptable to stay the course, to live the life of a poet, when my family only told me I was ridiculous. Andy taught me to believe in myself, to believe in the path of the poet. Next up, we have James Bridger. James, come on up.
It would be hard to go on after that beautiful presentation we just got of Andy in 1976 and 77. And I'm not going to be, oh, hi, Wayne. and I didn't see eye to eye on everything poetical. And we had a very good relationship, but we had our struggles between the two of us. We did. There's no question about it. But I had a terrible stroke in 2015. A stroke that left me in a situation where I had a lady coming in 3 times a week to teach me how to swallow. I was with a walker, a stick cane, and a stick. But while I was still just getting off the walker and moving to the cane, there was a reading in Jersey City. And my mother died while I was sick. I was in a coma for a few months.
Oh my God.
And I woke up and my mother was fucking dead. It was the best relationship of my life. No question about it. I loved her a lot. She was she was like Francine from Proust. Just real, you know? I loved her a lot. Anyway, I gave this reading they helped me up on the stage and I was like, you know, like that. And I read about my mother, who, by the way, thought Andy was as sexy as Tom Jones, which for my mother, I mean, it was Tom Jones, Engelbert Humperdinck. But this guy Andy might have actually gotten in the middle of Humperdinck and Jones. I mean, Jones was just beyond. It's like Raquel Welch for women at the time. But anyway, Andy, when I read my poem for my mother, you know, like, I don't know, like a dead man talking, Andy got up and he gave me like an applause, like he could have broken his hand from the clapping he did. And we didn't get along about a lot of poetic things. But in that moment, and in a lot of moments, I met him in Europa, like in 1982, with my great friend, Michael Wojciech, who I can't believe is here. And he was so generous, and I just want to say to everybody here who's a poet, whether you're, you know, considered great or you've published 1,000 things, or you haven't fucking published anything, and you, oh God, there's people that just do it their whole lives because they can't do anything else, you know? And we do that. And you should be proud of yourselves. And Andy was one of them. Whatever kind of poetry, whether, you know, like, there's all kinds of poets, just like there's all kinds of musicians. Yehudi Menuhin didn't hang out with Johnny Cash, you know? But they were both fucking great. And Andy was great in his way. And we should really appreciate each other who've got this fucking word problem, you know? Just love words, man, you know? Like, you gotta talk. We talk too much. Anyway. One last memory, in Allen Ginsberg's apartment, somebody had given me these long boots, you know? And I thought, well, I put them on, and it came up to my knee. I never had boots like that before. I mean, I was in the time when people wore boots like that. But I put them on, and I tucked my pants in. It was a ridiculous look. I really regret it. I went with Andy to Allen Ginsberg's house, and Corso was there. Corso says, this was like when the 80s were in. The Lower East Side was called Alphabet City, and it was really fucking dangerous. Corso said, you guys should go to Alphabet City. You could go at night, because you look like cops. And he was big and like, and I was like the little prick with the little book, you know? And he was, anyway. Thank you very much. Andy was beautiful, man. He was who he was 100 times. So thanks again.
It's so good!
him as himself as Dead Man Walking. I was there. It was more like Lazarus Rising. We talk about a lot of people who come here from all over the place. Our next speaker came all the way from Maine, and, well, just Iro Rutuka.
It's really an honor to be able to come to New York City and honor Andy. It's really wonderful. I've never lived in New York City. I've never lived in Woodstock. But over the years, Andy's in my path crossed a number of times. And what I kind of think of Andy, and what I got from Andy was how affirmative he was for those that were doing good work, and even work that went, beyond poetry and that. I met Andy at Radcliffe when Hetty Jones and Janine Palmy Bay were doing a reading, and it was late 1990s, and Janine introduced me to Andy and said, "This is my boyfriend." And Andy's, looked at me and says, "Can you believe it?" I said, "I'm with Janine Palmy Vega." And about a year later, Andy and Janine were reading in Lowell, which is about 20 miles from a farm that I ran for about 22 years. And they were both reading, and I remember at that reading, Andy, somewhere in the midst of his reading, he said, "I am an oak." And so I think he's been kind of carrying that phrase with him for a long period of time. Maybe it's in one of his poems too. I don't know. But I remember it there in Lowell. And about that time, I was starting to do events at my farm. And I wanted to bring poets, musicians, and chefs. I sold to 35 restaurants. And so for 8 years, we had quite a run of bringing some really fine poets, musicians, and of course, chefs to the farm. And early on, Janine and Andy came. And on that particular day, there was a guy named Mushroom Ben, who was... he was a forger of mushrooms for the chefs, and he came to the farm gate, and he had a bushel basket that was almost, mushrooms were spilling out of it. And he said, "Errol, look what I found for our party here." And I kind of looked over my glasses and I said, "Are those Chimnopolis Spectaculus?" And he goes, "Very good, Laughing Gems. We'll have these for whoever wants them." And so we had a reading, we had wine, we had beer, we probably had pork and lamb and all this great food and poetry. And then afterwards we had a party at my house, and I remember the lamps in the house turned into Mexican masks. My wife turned into a white owl, 5-foot owl. Joe. And Andy might have said, "I'm a mighty oak." I'm not. So my last memory of Andy was when he was with Pam, and they had I think it was their second kind of memorial reading for Janine, and they were reading there, and I ended up I stayed at Brenda Colts' house. I saw her kind of walk in. And the next morning that I was leaving, I took a little walk, and is it Kinderhook Creek that runs through through Woodstock Creek, and I saw Andy was walking down a path from Lake Sheep's bookstore, and I was walking towards him, and it was kind of this evening light among the trees that I had, and I waved, and Andy waved to me, and he came up to him, we sat down and talked, and he said, Errol, you can, so I had a really special request, is that, in this new relationship with Pam, and we really would love to do mushrooms together to kind of sanctify the relationship. And any chance you could get some of those mushrooms that you had at your farm a few years ago? And I said, well, I'll see if I can find mushroom bed and see what I can do. And I tried, and mushroom bed was no longer foraging. He was pretty sick and not in business. And so this is trying to make good on Andy's request that I was unable to do when Andy was with us. And so this is a poem about entheogenic, an entheogenic mint, entheogen, so basically a plant that brings one to God or goddess consciousness. In this case, it's Salvia divinorum. It's a mint. It grows on the hillsides of Mexico. The Spaniards called it Hoyos de la Pastora. And the good doctor in this poem is Richard Evans Schultes, who is the kind of the father of ethnobotany, and with Albert Hoffman, he wrote the book, The Chemistry and Botany of Hallucinogenic Plants. Sitting with plants, the air begins to change. I don't see spirits, I see molecules, the good doctor said. Beans feed squash. Atmosphere charges seed. Metal rusts. Nails let go. Barn falls down. Or it rains again, and the toilet bowl fills. Along cultivated fields, children with bikes, they come. They play with it. A man dead 3 days, he revives. He revives immediately when leaves, green leaves, those leaves are laid on him. Andy, we love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Errol. Next up, Valerie Estan. Come on, let's hear it.
Thank you. Yes, Andy is gone, but his memory will live with us. So I became sort of a seasonal Woodstockian, going there every summer for a couple of months, and I hook up with Andy and Pamela, and I came up with this idea that we should perform together and make some videotapes out of it. And the suggestion of the late Sylvie Diguez and Wayne Lopes, who is here, we gathered up in the mountains at their recording studio past Sogarties, and we will create all kinds of scenarios in which we will read poetry. And I can't forget this one particular session that we did, and Andy was placed between two huge rocks, like sort of an angel coming out in between the rocks, and these huge boulders were like his wings, It's the only person that could fly using huge rocks as wings. And it was just unbelievable how me and Ruth, my wife, and late Sylvie and Wayne and Pamela and Andy, we created maybe 6 or more videos of incredible poetry actually in a forest. You know, it was a kind of a forest poetry. And the fact that he called himself an oak, it's no surprise. But enough with these memories, and I would like to read you a poem called Frozen Roses for Andy Clausen. The room is empty without you and Pamela, overlooking the poetry ashram. Born in a bomb shelter in Belgium, 1943, Andy has been walking across America for 80-some years, days and night, always on the go. White hair, white beard, white mustache, avoiding carefully linguistic lettuce, avoiding spiders, avoiding scorpions and snakes. Janine Pami Vega knew your inner songs, divinely played by your bed in a guest house, opiated tea at the Artist and Poet Cemetery, the unmistakable smell of frozen roses that now float with you to the other side of destiny, writing another lament to Allen Ginsberg from inside of a whale lost in Atlantic. The one-legged dancer has left the floor. His restless spirit was the salt of Woodstock. His poetry will haunt us till the end of days. Thank you very much. But I would like also to read a poem dedicated to Pamela, because they were an inseparable couple.
That's right.
And this one, it's called Memento Mori. Cover your face and pray to Mother Earth. Remember her among us like a spry spirit, a tall, wild maple on a winding Woodstock trail, a free bird searching the islands in a darkening sky. Beat mother to poets and anarchists and musicians. The sound of your voice, Pamela, still reverberating. Burning poems about a scorched California woods. A cycle of dancers with feathers headdresses. Concentrated, concerned, and covered conversation. Do not shed tears as rain dissolves so quickly. Sometimes it's difficult to maintain memories. Open your third eye and do not blink as the full moon rises above the reservoir like a giant question mark that explodes like a galaxy of stars. Rest in peace, Pamela. rest in poetry and keep on shining. Thank you very much. I'm Bowery, the voice of this year.
Thank you, Valerie. We're running pretty good on time, so I think everybody who signed up will get on. I'm going to read, next I'm going to read one more piece from somebody who couldn't be with us tonight. But first, let me just thank two people. Thank you again to Michael Wochuk for the and I also want to thank Stephen Marlowe, who is videotaping this reading. We're gonna get this up on YouTube. Might take a week or so, but we will get it up on YouTube for people who couldn't be here. Next, I'm gonna read. This is a prose piece sent to us from Joe Kidd, who some of you I'm sure know that Andy and Pamela were both appointed this thing called Beat Poet Laureates by this group in Connecticut. This is a piece from Joe Kidd, who is the Beat Poet Laureate from Michigan. And it's called What I Have Learned from Andy Clausen. It is only natural that as we go through life, we age, we lose our mobility, our hearing, and too often our loved ones. At the same time, we gain knowledge, resilience, compassion, and the sense that all things are impermanent, including ourselves. If we are in touch and in tune with all the things that we have believed in throughout our lives, then we are not devastated by loss, but rather enlightened by the actual experience of life. Like every poet, every person, each of us has suffered and overcome suffering in our own way. The proof is that we are still here communicating and caring about what happens to the world. That is what makes us different, abnormal. That is how we define ourselves as artists, poets, philosophers, warriors. We battle the demons that invade our consciousness, surrounding our happiness and bombarding it with fear and lies. We employ the love that we have shared with others in this effort to stay strong and essential in the realm that we inhabit. And it is a realm of wonder and beauty. Whether we admit it, whether we look to see it, it is there for us all. It is there for us and for all. We are the map makers. We are the scouts that cut the path. We are the discoverers. We are the creators of worlds, explorers but not conquerors. The pain we inflict is the pain of truth. In the course of our lives, we create our history. We create the myths and legends of our thoughts, words, and actions. When the end of this episode arrives, it must be on a zenith as we proclaim our freedom. It must be filled with the admiration and love of others who know us. It must be in the light of respect and inspiration instead of grief, sorrow, and regret. We write the book of life. It is a reference book for the time that follows, our fingerprint, our footprint. We are the ancestors of the future. We know what is coming. We stand in its wake. We shake our fist and then bow our head at its awesomeness. We are multidimensional, luminous, transparent beings. More than mere writers, we are both historians and prophets at once. Yes, we have a burden to carry, but we are conditioned and prepared. With our reputation comes the responsibility to set the bar high, to be the example of what greatness can achieve. And that's from Joe Kidd.
Wow.
Thank you, Eliot, for reading that. While I was walking forward to the bathroom, my past Greg Masterson said, "For God's sakes, read some of Andy's poems." So let me read a short one by Andy. This one comes from the Iron Curtain of Love. And it's a short one. While walking to town one day, I attempt to kill my verse, to strangle it, to boot its throat, yet it refuses. The deemed euthanasia, and I am rescued by Walt and Vladimir, who tell me, don't worry about the death-mongering, atrophied children of boredom. Sing on of the people and the street where revolutions are born.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we we got St. James and then Mitch Porter. Okay? St. James, you with us? Okay, let's hear it for St. James. Come on.
All right, these are for Andy. It was a dark and stormy night. Thanks be to God, Blue and Gold Tavern is only 400 feet away.
Yeah, now you're talking Ukraine.
This isn't the .com era any longer. It's climate change, and every day it's dark and stormy. Still, we pray for butterflies. Sirens signal distress in New Amsterdam. Lost in Alphabet City. Forgetting to pay the bill at Blue Note. Everything is all paid for in the future. We celebrate with Wisniak, omakase life, bites of explosive flavors, blacking out the blue and gold, still Cooper Union, Cooper Union, Cooper Union, Cooper Union, Cooper Union, still Chambord Pickleback, Chambord Pickleback, Chambord Pickleback, Chambord Pickleback, A, B, C, D, E, F, U, C, K, Putin. Occupy Lo Castro, 20J Takeover, Summer, Monument Valley tucked into the cityscape, final stand of the punks. Boomerang back to Tommy, boomerang back to Heat Lightning. They steal everything. Florida wins the Stanley Cup.
All right, thank you.
Can't argue with that. Florida did win the Stanley Cup.
Did they really?
What? Did I know Florida won Stanley Cup hockey? That doesn't make sense. Mitch Porter,
Florida doesn't make sense.
for us.
You know, Florida is shaped like a gun. Look at that.
Calm down.
Mitch Porter.
So this is the video that couldn't.
Oh.
It only accepted JPEGs, this projector, not flash drives. Danny and I had a movie. So I have to thank Greg Bremser and Andy Clausen at the 1995 NYU Kerouac Symposium. And they were guest speakers, and they had a room over Washington Square Park. And I had my camera. I had a press pass. I was accredited to document the event. But the greatest thing was sitting there with Ray and Andy in that hotel room. To get so close to these greats. I had a thing for Ray, you know. He said, man, I need $25. You know, so he got it, believe me. In fact, I don't even think I had my camera when I first went up to the hotel room. I taxied home and got it. And then it was a conversation. Ray over here, and then Andy in that communist black and white t-shirt. But he had one of his small books that he was flipping through when he let me get so close. And 2 nights ago, I said, I'm going to go back to that footage for this event. And love was with me. And this is Andy Clausen, Bebop. His Bebop poem. But you only hear the audio. So you're going to hear it twice.
The great African afterbeat and kinetics have sex with the age of enlightenment. The unceasing true escape. The go will be gone call and response. The flaming French horn outer space campfires. The 2nd Avenue Gotham taxi assiduous brushes. The weed in the sidewalk crack dignity solo. The folk songs of 10,000 human years translated by the orchestra from Mars, arranged outside in. The Georgia pine shack sprung shackles rattling down the main line smokestack on wheels of oscillating boogieing conception like Tibetan horns and bells at a downtown pace of the chase that haunts every coping face and exhales musical neologism. What is the opposite of bebop? Is it a tyrannical boredom that states the problem as too much freedom? Define bebop, the cronies demand, and I repeat the meaning a man was bebop. Hit me to, yes. Bebop is an attitude. Big time Boku Tok of mighty Zalm. Infinite Zalm, perpetual future, down home fuse explode. Perpetual motion nightmares of Zalm. Erectile projective blue Zalm. New woman muse. Elevated wrangle and wang dong do dangle. Infinite Zalm. Reborn beyond sense, be-re-colored bop rhythm of trans-rational, transnational, bingo, lingo, zonga, zangizi, zappage, sandum, cartoomic, vast folk, kicking warm and desperate, emotion and co-motion, unborn in prison, limbo, marooned others, the purgatorial blurry blue mumbles and guffaws from the center of each vowel and hand. Zom, sound of sweat triumphant. Zom, come in the flesh. Zom, lonely and lonesome. Behold, it comes quickly. And you'll scream and you'll throw yourselves to the floor and claw and spit and weep and spasm about like fish out of water, and you'll beg Zom for its love. Shooby-dooby, shooby-doo, shooby-dooby means I love you. Booty ap zom, oh Rooney Mac vout slam in the jam of the gammon yam. Isn't art the mating call of Al-Chiringa? Isn't poetry the cadence and trill thrill of love's billion-hearted tragedy and vindication? Isn't philosophy really the blues? Isn't mathematics the meter of molecular unity? Isn't music the dress of the body's fluids? Isn't Zom the salvation of the planet? I know you want me to write like I did in Texas, like I did in the Iron Curtain of Love. Zom flat scats the street is not a language poet. The Tabaret street pumps Zom. We are a hungry weed of electricity from the dark side of life. Infinite Zom!
I'll replay it after the event is over. Thank you so much.
Mitch, that was wonderful. And I sincerely thank you for having the wherewithal when that chip wasn't working, that you stood up here with your phone and made it work. You have my respect for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the new technology.
That's right.
It's on my Facebook page, everybody.
And it's on my Facebook page also.
Oh, I liked it.
One of his friends who couldn't be here, who published The Fabled Damned, is Bruce Isaacson, and he goes back with Andy.
Where is Bruce? Is he in Las Vegas?
He's in Las Vegas, and Bruce sent me 2 poems. One that's about 6 pages long, called Elegy for Andy, which I will not read, and one that's...
Oh, you must be something.
No! Wait a second!
No, don't worry, Bob. Bob, don't worry. Not happening. And this one, which is much shorter, called called Standing for Andy Clausen by Bruce Isaacson.
Okay.
And his elegy is quite a good poem, and it goes from Andy's life, born in a bomb shelter, up until the nursing home.
Can you post it somewhere?
Maybe. Standing for Andy Clausen. At the Starbucks, where I wrote my poem to Walt Whitman, they've taken out all the chairs. No more room for people, just transactions. Drive up, mobile app, text, phone call, or order on a computer screen in the lobby. But please don't sit and drink your coffee. Please don't sit and think about my friend of 40 years who died yesterday in New York. Or, if I want to do that, I'll have to do it standing. Next up, Dorothy Friedman August.
Keep it going, man.
Glad to be here with everyone celebrating Andy Clausen, and the last time I believe that I saw Andy was at Shiv Marabito's in Woodstock, and I was impressed by both his poetry and his spirituality, as I am with Shiv Marabito's, very much so. So I had not planned to read anything, but I will show you this photo, because I actually didn't really know Andy that well. I knew Allen Ginsberg and Gregory Corso, particularly in the 80s. But this is actually a photo that Gary Azon took at the Poetry Project of me sitting next to Gregory Corso, where he looks...
Great photo, great photo.
Wonderful, wonderful poet. If anyone wants to know more about Gary's photos, they will be shown at the Tompkinsville Library next fall. And and this poem was written actually for Allen Ginsberg about his last breath that he took, and it was written after going to the St. Mark's Poetry Project, when it was called the St. Mark's Poetry Project, not just the project. It's about Allen's last breath. Last breath to Allen Ginsberg. The last breath is a two-step, too brief to tunnel time out of. We dance twirling art out of its final tremblings. Heaven was waiting for Allen's arrival. It had long been anticipated by the seraphim. So when Allen came in quite suddenly in the night in the arms of Buddha, he was given a place at the head of the table beside Whitman and Blake. So come join us on the slopes of poetry where our uninhibited poet prays to bring us closer to God's lyric. It was on one of these rocky seas that the last breath began its precarious dance. On one of these choppy seas it released itself. It was on one of these days when no one could tweeze the leaves, but we all floated up before dinner. all the syllables we fight so hard to speak as our blanket wraps us in the final sleep. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, Dorothy. We're close to the end now. Two more things. I want to remind people that on July 13th, which is a Saturday, will be the burial of Andy's ashes at the Woodstock Artist Cemetery. And then there will be the after party at Shivastan Poetry Ashram. And I'm sure everyone's invited to that. One of the people who sent poems who can't be it because he's in Las Vegas also, and he's not gambling, he's there working with Bruce, is James Norman. He does a lot of the day-to-day operations of Zeitgeist Press, and he really was the one who put together Andy's book, The Fabled Damned. So he sent this poem, Requiem for Andy, bury him in his boots. They don't make him, James is a young guy. I mean, he's in his 30s, I call that a young guy. Requiem for Andy. They don't make them like that anymore, though they never made them that way, right out of the box. It takes time, tragedy, a few big belly laughs. The cables of the bridge learn strength at the behest of the wind. That's how they prove they are steel. Compassion is a tool forged in the heat of desperate times. And the calluses tell the pen the gossip of the enlightened. If you've ever stood up tall under a bag of concrete, if you've ever nursed a splinter for 3 days before it came out clean and gone giddy at the relief, if you've ever sold your soul to the indifferent god of art, not good, not bad, just all-consuming as that first high, all heads hawking street wisdom asked if this trip even ends or we just get used to it. The ladder to heaven is so tall, taller than the arched eyebrow of a good man and a bad excuse, taller than the tall tales the politician lulls the working man to sleep with. So better leave the hod tray behind. You are the next brick, and the words you left us are solid, will do fine as any have for mortar. James Norman. Okay, last up, we need to end this with a poem by Andy, and the person who's going to tell it to us is the person who put this together, Eliot Katz.
Who co-organized this with Dana Shaw. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to all the readers. Thank you to Bob Holman for graciously. So I had the pleasure, years ago, I can't remember how many years ago now, Kurt Hemmer, who from the Beat Studies Association, put together an encyclopedia of beat literature, and I had the pleasure to write 2 pieces about Andy. The way Kurt was doing the book was 1 biography and 1 book review. And so the book I wrote about was Andy's book, Without Doubt, which was an earlier book that Bruce Isaacson had published. And I'm going to end the reading by reading one of my favorite poems of Andy's from that book, Without Doubt. It's called We Could. We could sing without drinking. It was possible. Yeah. But it was impossible to drink without singing the blues. Our only avenues of escape, art, fame, treachery, were against the law. We'd done enough hard work to see where it had gotten the others. Folks would say, why so bitter? And we wouldn't answer. We would rid the epic of slavery for women and all others. We'd smash the caste system. We'd put aristocrats to work, sacrificing this puny life for the infinite future. We'd give Shiva something else to do. You marvel the water doesn't hurt itself dashing the rocks. This night is perforated with other side light. The light of gypsy mountains, the light of eyes that know enlightenment is light, not taken lightly. Outshering the light of night and day, where the sidewalks of the diaspora are once again livid at the lyric tables, gritting blues for the long time future. Our own messiahs calling back from the grave, a laugh from the bottom, a pantheistic ennoblement, venerating houses and trees as much as teachings and miracles. We knew good and evil were a trap. Yet we couldn't do as we pleased very long. Our inventions of hell were worse than what others created for us. After all these years, lust to avoid the easy persuades our swallow of fiery Shiva. We must try out the traps of our nemesis. A fate so perfect, one would say it came direct from Mother Planet intelligence. Submerging in enzymes, lymph, hormones, igniting the middles of our bodies, a moment unconscious of our shackles. We slaves to performing memorable, vindicating, catalytic catalectics. We who expose the false God. We who expose the falseness of gods, the gods of shackling limits. Sara, Pinu, Pu, Nebu, the tribe of the future, the children of Zaun, the children of the broken vow, a scratch across the face of the sky. A boot heel on the throat of my undoubted doubt. A shout into the monastery, prepare to encounter the Scythians. Let the table jump. Having killed ourselves, Buddha lives. The path deep as a trench. Piss on the ground of our ancestors in heaven and parinirvana. Sara, Pinu, Pu, Nebu, we are sentenced. There is no back to return to. We lick the jewel in the lotus till it is human. Then we eat God alive. Andy, we miss you, we love you, we're going to keep reading you. We hope you do well wherever you are. Thank you. Let's, we honor Andy Clausen today.